This is Dr. Rob Harder with the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast, Making Your World Better. What does it take to be an effective nonprofit leader today? What are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest obstacles? How should nonprofits fundraise in an economy that is constantly changing? All of these reasons combined led me to start this show. And it's my hope that through this series, people can learn not only what it takes to be an effective nonprofit organization, but to hear from effective leaders who are successfully making a positive impact in their communities. We hope you enjoy the show as together we hear how they are making their world better. Hello, podcast listeners. Thanks for tuning in today. Hey, right off the top, I wanted to let you know we are now utilizing our YouTube channel quite a bit. So all of this great content that you're listening to on wherever you listen to podcasts is now on our YouTube channel. You just go to YouTube and type in Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. And not only can you hear and see these great interviews with these amazing leaders, but there's additional video content. So I encourage you to check it out. And I encourage you also to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That'll just help us get the word out about these great interviews to more and more people. So take a look at YouTube today, Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. All right, for today's topic, that's a little bit of a sobering topic, but my guest today will give us some real hope as to how their organization is really addressing one of the biggest issues in the world today. So let me start with a question. Did you know that every 21 seconds, a child perishes from waterborne diseases such as typhoid, cholera, and dysentery? Now, ensuring people around the world have access to clean and safe water is something that I think everyone can agree on. Well, my guest on today's show is deeply invested in the vital role that safe water plays in addressing gender inequalities, empowering women and girls specifically, and advancing global development. But it's not just the mission of this organization that is impressive, it's how they're going about accomplishing their mission. My guest today is Hannah Bellamy. She's the managing director in the UK for the nonprofit organization Charity Water. Charity Water started back in 2006 and has quickly become one of the best-known nonprofits in North America. If you've been tracking with my nonprofit podcast for a while, we've actually had them on the show before, but it's been a few years. We had Tyler on the show several years ago. So Hannah's back on the show to give us an update on how Charity Water is going about building local partnerships, using the power of mentoring, and investing in long-term sustainable solutions for providing clean and safe water all over the world. Enjoy today's show. This podcast is sponsored by DonorBox. DonorBox, helping you help others with the best donation forms in the business. Well, Hannah, it's so good to have you on the show. Welcome to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob.
Absolutely. She is calling in from the UK, or zooming in, as I should say. Thank you for coming in at a little different time than my time zone, but really glad to have you talk about Charity Water. Now, for my listeners, if you've been tracking my show for a while, we've had Charity Water on. We had Tyler on, but it's been several years. And so I thought it would be great to get an update because Charity Water is one of those organizations that I think most people have at least heard the name. The recognition has been excellent. I mean, you probably know this, but the brand recognition, I think, is very high for Charity Water. I think most people at least have heard about them. You started in 2006. And so first of all, I just want to say congratulations to Scott and the entire team, how you've really built and grown this organization to really become a very well-recognized brand, not just because of what you do, but the work you do is so important. And so maybe that's, for my listeners, maybe they've heard the name, but they don't know exactly to the depth of what you actually do. So maybe just to start off, give me a quick overview for my listeners of what Charity Water is all about, its mission, and then your role at Charity Water.
Yeah, of course. So Charity Water, we're pretty much what we say on the tin. So we are a nonprofit organization that brings clean, safe drinking water to people in countries where they don't have it. And we're focused very much on those countries that are low on the UN Human Development Index. And really, we want to bring long-term clean water to those countries. So it's not about coming in, building a project, off we go. It's about we're really embedded within these countries, but not as Charity Water. We work through local partners. So that's one of our key differences is it's not our own network. It's a network we've built of all the experts and all the different, we've got nearly 60 local organizations we're working with across 22 countries to bring long-term clean water solutions to them. And the one thing we do, I think, a little bit differently is we do have a 100% model. So what that means is that publicly, when we fundraise, 100% of those pennies, dollars, pounds, euros go and are invested with those partners on the clean water projects. And then when it comes to my role, so it's interesting because you talk about Charity Water being a well-known brand and a growing nonprofit that people have heard of. And that's definitely the case in North America. But I'm based here in London and we are a much newer organization. So I started in 2018, first full-time employee of Charity Water in the UK. And it's our first office that we've set up internationally. So I work on raising the brand here, UK and Europe, working with donors in the UK and Europe and building partnerships with businesses and everything else. So it's the same model. I work very, very closely with our US team, but there's that slight difference to what I do.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing that. And congratulations as being the first employee at the UK for Charity Water. That's a great point. Let's talk a bit about that 100% model, because I know when I had Tyler on the show, and I've heard Scott speak at various events, that is a fairly unique model. I mean, I think we all as nonprofits aim for that, but it's very difficult to get the amount of support you need to really, underwrite and cover all the staff and the programming, if you have a building, et cetera. So tell us again, for my listeners who maybe don't know how this got started, how are you able to manage that? Because that's a very difficult thing. Is what I understand is you have basically a group of investors / donors that understand the desire and the power of being able to tell people, hey, this is a 100% model in terms of the funding. So we will give you the money that you need over here, so to speak, and it's going to go straight to cover all of your overhead and your staffing. So yeah, how does it work for those who have not heard about this model?
Yeah, of course. And I think the first thing I would say is it is hard, right? This is not an easy thing and it's not something we go out and recommend that other people do. I think the really interesting piece is Scott, when he started Charity Water, he's not from the sector. So he didn't come to it and know how typically things are done. He saw it as almost an outsider and thought, what's the challenge? Why aren't people giving to this? He thought he would come and solve this quickly because surely people can't believe this is a problem, that people are drinking, dirty water. It's the leading killer of children under the age of 5. It's lack of clean water and sanitation. So he thought people would want to do it. But there is that barrier, and he saw it very quickly, where people don't always trust. And unfortunately, particularly when it comes to international organizations, where's the money going? What's my money doing? So he set up, we have 2 separate bank accounts. One is purely for water and one is purely for our overhead and operations. And I will say that we pay our auditors an additional fee to audit that piece of our work. So when they come in and they check everything out, and we want, every organization wants a clean bill of health financially and doing the audit, we also ask them to say, spend some additional time, check this. We want you to tell us that this is definitely happening because it's so important to our business. And so they do. So they will go in and the same with our auditors here in the UK. Every year they'll suddenly start picking all these random donations, and hopefully we have all the records on Salesforce. If not, I will have them in my email and I will find them to show exactly where that donor intended that donation to go. So it's really about donors having choice and donors knowing where the money's going. So yes, publicly, generally, someone goes on our website, it's going to go to clean water. They're not going there and giving small donations to our operations. It would be difficult for us to process. It's also maybe in the future, I will say, because it's not always easy to build that investor model. But yes, we have a group of mostly people who have founded businesses or from families who found businesses who really understand investing and investing in people and systems and the boring stuff like the CRM system and why that's needed to grow. And in other businesses, it would be to increase sales. In us, it's about increasing fundraising and giving other donors that really clear, clean experience. And those donors, they love it because they know if they're giving us $1 or £1, it's being quadrupled. So they're looking at it in that way, getting better return for their money because they can look at what they're investing in us as an organization and what we're managing to deliver. So yeah, I would say that water, it's easier for us to do this, right, than other nonprofits. So it's a binary issue. So if we say clean water, the money going into our water bank account, it's being sent to our local partners. We are able to prove every single project that they deliver with a pin on a map. They can see there's proof on our website, everything else. There's photos of it. So it's not easy. That is, especially as you grow and scale and, hundreds of thousands of projects, it's not simple. But at the same time, we're not looking at medical research or something else, or it would probably be much harder. You wouldn't have a binary result. You're much more iterative building of things. So We are more able than other nonprofits to do that.
Yeah, no, well said. Thanks for explaining that. Well, and I ran across this stat, according to the UN report recently, and then the CDC actually pumped out some other data as well. So get this for my listeners. Each year, 1.7 to 2.2 million people die from waterborne diseases. And they went on to say each day, 5,000 children die from infectious diarrhea acquired from unsafe drinking water. And then every 21 seconds, a child perishes from waterborne diseases such as typhoid, cholera, and dysentery. So I know that you and your team are deeply invested in this vital role that clean and safe water plays in addressing gender inequalities, empowering women and girls, of course, advancing global development. But just at the end of the day, these diseases that we just talked about, that is such a critical, like you said, a very binary, presentation of you want people to die or you want to have clean water and safe water, right? So a very clear mission. So talk about some of the key ways that you're doing that to really invest in this idea of clean and safe water, and then to talk about all the benefits that you're seeing with your work.
Yeah, of course. Well, as I said, it's not us doing the work. We work with local partners. So 58 local partner organizations across 22 countries. So we take our funding. We work with those partners once they've been through a fairly rigorous identification and vetting process and getting set up with us. We will work with them on effectively at least a 5-year plan. What does a 5-year plan look like for them? And then we will work on annual granting cycles. So it's always looking at the long term and doing this together. So we will then grant on an annual basis to those partners who will be saying to us, this is how many projects we're going to deliver, this is how many communities we're going to visit, this is how many schools. And we're completely solutions agnostic, which means that we don't ever say what the solution should be. For us, the solution has to be suitable for the local community. Are they able to get spare parts? Does this seem and feel right and something that they're comfortable using? It has to obviously work within the geography and the hydrogeology of that situation. You're drilling down deep enough, you're using the right type of piping, which won't corrode on the pH level of the water or anything like that. And it has to be long-term sustainable. So it has to be a solution. We're not going in, our organization we don't work in emergency situations, for example, because there's other organizations doing that wonderfully. And we're more about that long-term infrastructure piece. So that's how we're fixing it. And it can look different. It can be a biosand filter in Cambodia. It can be a drilled borehole with a hand pump, for example, in many of the countries we work. And we're constantly working with our partners also to try to evolve that and help them talk to each other to think, how do we not only deliver what's always been delivered in these areas, but keep evolving and innovating to make sure that it's the best possible solution that will work for the long term.
I think that's one of your strengths of many, that you really do have these local partners that you connect with. So talk a little bit more about that. You already just shared a bit more. I think it's such a wise and strategic example of why you're successful in your work. But again, just to state it, you really are linking up with experienced local partners in order to really provide, as you mentioned, sustainable community-owned water projects. So this is not just charity water swooping in, so to speak, and doing these things. It's really working with the local community so they own it. I do think that is so much better in terms of the long-term sustainability of these projects. So how have you developed these partnerships? What kind of the process do you go about to build those partnerships, investigate perhaps, who are the key people they can connect with? So talk about that process for those who have similar nonprofits, perhaps, that they're trying to build this local partnership as well. They can learn from how you've done this so well.
So I will say I am not the expert in this area. So I will give you a very, very high level view. I have just come off a call speaking with some of the people who are experts in this area who are in our organization. So we're for Charity Water, we're a reasonably small team at Charity Water. So we're just over 100 people. About 25 of them are in our water programs team. And that water programs team, they're identifying and managing those partnerships. And we divide it geographically as well. So somebody will be responsible more for some of the projects in Southeast Asia, different parts of Africa, etc. So we divide it that way. And then within that team, we also have what's called program finance. So they're working with our partners, not on the strategic plan and everything else I talked about and the proposals they're putting in, but looking purely at the finance. What are our partners' budgets saying? What are they trying to develop? How do we help them with that? We also have measurement teams. So they're looking at what impact data is being collected. What's our baseline data with our partners? What they're collecting there? How do we go on to look at that a year later to see what the impact has been? What other amounts of data is? We're collecting huge amounts of data. So we're doing that. But when we look at our partners, so we're a smallish team, relatively speaking, 100 plus people. But if you look at our local partners, the 58 local partners, it's about 7,000 people who are employed by those local partners, local people who come from and are within those communities. And so we're working with them and ensuring they have the funding to go and do the work which they're expert in, and that they can ensure is sustainable. So they're going to be much better equipped at working with local governments, going into those local communities. And it's not just about the infrastructure, it's about behavior change and things as well. So how are we helping communities to stop things like open defecation, for example, to wash hands with soap? What's the appropriate time to be doing that throughout the day? All these different things. So it's, as you said, it's not for us to go and do it. And we do it with each one of those partners. We have a obviously fairly rigorous system in place to be able to do that and manage that number of partners. But I will say, I'm always so impressed by our team members in that area because they're really expert, but they also just form these amazing relationships. So they are long-term partnerships, and we're doing things. So when we're doing things like looking at their budgets with these partners, and I talked about the program finance side of it, we're not going in there to look at those budgets and try and trick them up. It's not about us going in and being the big bad funder. We're going in there very much wanting this to work as well as possible and provide guidance and help with things. And the team, they just do that wonderfully. The relationships are so close, and that's so those 7,000 people. We're not working with all of them on an everyday basis, but there are some where we really are, and those are very close. They're like colleagues to us. Those relationships.
That's good to know. So is it accurate to say then a lot of the money that say is given to Charity Water doesn't necessarily just go to staff members, but you're then basically kind of vetting out different local partners, and then a lot of the funding goes straight to these local partners. Is that correct?
Yes, 100% of the funding goes to the local partners. Exactly.
Okay, 100%. There you go. That's fantastic. Okay. We'll be right back. Are you looking for an easy and effective way to boost your nonprofit's donations? Look no further than DonorBox, the online fundraising platform that streamlines your fundraising efforts, maximizes donations, and simplifies giving for your supporters. With DonorBox, you can create beautiful donation forms, accept digital wallet payments, track donations, and send auto receipts. And the best part? There are no setup or monthly fees and no long-term contracts required. So what are you waiting for? Visit donorbox.org today to get started. That is donorbox.org. Hey friends, and thanks so much for listening to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. I want to let you know that I've recently become a professional certified coach. With my nearly 30 years of nonprofit experience, I know firsthand how hard you work as a leader. I also know how important it is to have someone you can call on to get help with the barriers, the leadership challenges that you will face both professionally and personally. And I really want people to thrive, to become all they were meant to become by providing coaching and consulting services. So if coaching is something you've always been interested in, but maybe weren't quite sure what it was all about, I encourage you to reach out. You can go to my website, robharder.com, or just email me at rob@robharder.com. I would happy to provide a free sample coaching session so you can determine if coaching is for you. All right, thanks again for tuning in. Now back to the show. Another thing you really have invested in, as I understand it, particularly I think in your role, is mentoring, the power of mentoring. I think there is real power, of course, in mentoring. And specifically, I think when you're doing international work and you're working with a large group of local partners, give us an example of how you're implementing that mentoring work and all that you're doing there at Charity Water.
So I think the first thing is Charity Water. So we're now a fully remote organization. And so that means we have to think about things a little bit differently. So it's really important to us that relationships are built across teams, across departments, and that we feel comfortable speaking with one another, sharing feedback, but also building relationships. So we don't have a formal mentoring thing in place internally to do that. We do have actually on our water programs team, one of them is a qualified coach, and she does specific coaching, which is amazing. I think people in the sector really benefit from that. I have a coach on our board on the UK, so she also gives me coaching, and we have that side of things. And then what we also do is this working remote and having this people spread across many different states, but also different countries, means that we also have this flexible working. And within that, we're very encouraged to indulge our passions and interests, especially when they're for good. So something like mentoring, whether it's receiving it or giving it to somebody else, is really encouraged. And we talk about that. And when we're doing our development plans each year and things, we will be looking at how are we living our values. And one of our values is generosity. So how are we doing that in our day-to-day lives? And part of that will be not just within the workplace completely, like peer to peer, but actually externally as well. How are we giving our time and our expertise?
Yeah. No, excellent. No, well done with that. Talking about values and how you go about doing your work. Charity Water has some core tenets or core operating values that I think my listeners will really appreciate. And one of those, you've already mentioned it, but maybe talk about more what this looks like on the ground level. You have this value of prove every project. Tell us more about what you mean by that and how does this play out?
It's a really interesting one because I think it's evolved over time. So it hasn't evolved in the sense of that we do it, but actually the value it adds for us has evolved. So part of the 100% piece is not just we'll tell you your money is going to our local partners and being invested in clean water projects. It's we will prove that this has happened. And bear in mind, we were founded in 2006. So I think it was around the same time that things like Google Maps and things were becoming popular. Well, not even popular, like we're being launched, right? And we were getting our smartphones and everything else. So the world's moved on quite a bit since. But at that time, it was really very new to think that we would go on to something like Google Maps. Now I use it all the time, too much. I'm reliant on it. I always go on it. But at the time, it was very innovative. And so we've been, ever since we started, pinning every single project. And as I said, at the time, it was about, we are going to prove to the donor that this project has happened. We told you your money would go somewhere. Yes, it has. Here it is. Here's a photo. This is the name of the community. This is how many people live there. So they could really get not only this, and then it wasn't only bringing trust, but actually that moment of joy and tangibility. Because you think, oh my God, this didn't exist before. And now it exists. And now this community has clean water. And now they have health. And now the kids have education. And now the women are able to go and work or create their businesses. And so it gave donors not only the proof, but also that level of joy. And then I think the really interesting piece, which has been great for our work over the long term, is it holds us to account. So if you put a pin on the ground and you've said this community now has clean water, it better still have clean water. We can't walk away from that. And so that's what it's added to us. And it's really important because as a sort of industry, as it were, if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, it'll be about 1 in 4 clean water projects isn't working. And for us, that is a huge disservice to the donor who originally funded it, but even more so to that community who have got used to clean. It's their immune system's not as strong as it was. The place they were going to get clean water, whatever. They're almost worse off than they were before. I always feel like. So for us, it's helped us to think about and to develop a sustainability strategy. And we're talking more and more about our role, not only being to bring clean water to people, but actually to ensure there is a maintenance system, just like you or I are used to, where, if my water's not running, I'm straight on my neighborhood WhatsApp group to be like, is your water, what's going on? Who's doing it? Someone's calling, with it, we expect that fixed and very quickly. So we want to ensure that everybody starts to have that level of service, no matter where they are.
Now, well said. Thank you for explaining that. Another thing that I think Charity Water really, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the show, that has done very well is their branding. They have excellent branding. They're a brand name that people know, I think, again, from a wide range of people and a wide audience. Now, it sounds like in the UK and in Europe, maybe it's still kind of new, but certainly in North America, very well known. And I understand you're helping others kind of get on board with brand mission. And so maybe what you could do is, number one, how do you define your brand there at Charity Water? And what are some of the key ways you've been successful at getting donors and local community members on board with Charity Water's brand?
It's a great question. And I think it comes again to the fact of not coming at it from a traditional nonprofit space where the brand or the logo or the look and the feel as a cause, that's never the most important thing. The most important thing is doing the work and doing the work well. But actually, what we know is, like with any organization, to do that, you need to appeal to people and you need to stand out. And I would say the water crisis it's not a unique issue, but we have what many other causes will have, which is we're not a new problem. So people not having access to clean water and sanitation, unfortunately, is an ancient problem, which is still there. So we're not going to get the attention and make noise and be heard about as news. There's no hook there. Nobody's reading that and think, I want the headline every day to be 703 million people still don't have access to clean and safe drinking water. But that's not going to happen. So it's really important, particularly if your cause isn't like that, where you can't do surveys, you can't have new stats and things like that to drive it, that you then think about, okay, well, how can we create noise and want people not only to be aware of this, but really want to be a part of it? And people want to be a part of something if it aligns with them in some way, if it's a brand that they want to be part of. They want to wear the sweatshirt. We want that. We want to be that brand. And so we've worked really hard on it. It's something we're continually looking at and thinking about. And it's been a really interesting and unique challenge coming to a new place like the UK market. What does that look like here? And I think thinking about the value side of it, one of the other ones would be innovation. And so we always think about, well, what's a bit different? How do we do that a bit differently? How do we talk to people? And so we'll do crazy things. And this is what I love is we have a certain amount of freedom and fun as an organization. So here in the UK, we've done things like we had a giant inflatable jerry can, our yellow jerry can, which people will know. We blew this thing up. We put it on a big kind of cargo bike that could be pulled along with messages all along the side of it. We got megaphones. We put speakers on it. We played music. We got volunteers out. And we walked the streets of London and we were shouting and we were cheering. We were giving out wristbands. We were talking about it. And so rather than trying to get people to pay attention to the scary stats, we wanted them to think, what are they doing? They're having fun. I want to be involved. I want to know that. They want to, and people did, and they spoke to us. And also, we also then got the news coverage. So then we were on Sky Radio, or we'd had people come down, take photos. They want to do it. They put it on social media. So that's one of the things we're always trying to do with our brand is do new pieces like that, which catch people's attention. Another really fun one we did at the end of last year, we had a Ghanaian artist called Serge Atakoye Clotty, who is known for doing art. It's called Afro-Gallenism with jerry cans, so a bit like us, really aligned with what we do. And he came over and we worked with him and collaborated on a piece of street art where and there were 10 of them, danced along the streets of London in amazing, incredible costumes, carrying jerry cans, banging them and acting out. And it was magical and mesmerizing. And again, people just stopped in awe and wanted to understand what was happening. And we did that during Art Week when we knew that was the type of thing that people wanted to know about. It was very appropriate at that time. It was great for Serge to be in London as well, because it's an exciting moment to be in London. So we're always trying to do things like that, where the brand, it's not about having the coolest brand. It's about doing cool things with the brand.
Right. No, great example. And people can go online and check out your website. There's I've seen videos and different things if they want to find out a little bit more how you've done that. So great example. It does seem like in your mission, there's a sense that you're not only offering health, but you're offering hope. How do you seek to integrate both providing help on the one hand and hope to those you serve? And what does providing, quote, hope look like for Charity Water?
I've never heard it put quite like that, but it's a beautiful way of saying it. And I would say I like to think we're providing hope to everybody. So we're providing hope to the people we serve, and we're providing hope to our local partners and the people who they're going in the communities they're bringing clean water to, especially when and what we see, I think, especially on the hope side, is when it's families or people with young children and the hope they have for their children's lives to be different from their own. So when we have a mother who has spent however many hours it is a day, maybe 7 hours a day, walking without maybe even any footwear or very thin flip-flops on stony ground to collect water, which she knows could be dirty, but she's still done it. And it's been heavy and burdensome and really just pure drudgery. Then she's knowing it's dangerous for her kids even to drink it. So if you think about that family then, and she looks, and maybe she has a baby daughter, she's looking at that daughter and thinking, okay, this life isn't for you. You are going to be clean. You're going to be hydrated. You're going to be healthy. You're going to go to school. So all the things. So it's the first step, right? Clean water is the first step, and we're providing hope. And then on the other side of it, when I think about our donors, I really like to think that we're providing them with hope as well, because there's so much happening in the world right now. We seem to be lurching from crisis to crisis. We are very fragmented as people in terms of agreeing on things. We're very polarized. And so we definitely see, and this is our theme of the year this year, is something we can all agree on. And so clean water, we don't have anyone from any political color or creed or whatever. We will say everyone agrees that human beings should have access to clean, safe drinking water. So that, I think, we give hope in that sense, that there's this humanity piece. And then the other side of it is, it's a huge problem. It's also one we know how to fix. So unlike, unfortunately, so many other things we're looking at where we really see issues and we want to do something, we have a huge desire to help, you don't always know how or what to do. Whereas with this, we say, okay, and especially with the 100% model, we say, yep, it feels awful. It can feel really hard, but we can agree on this. And if you give me your money, I can guarantee that in your name and because of you, change will happen to someone on the other side of the world.
Right. That's a great way to describe it. Well, Hannah, thanks so much for sharing a little bit more and giving us an update on Charity Water. And thanks for all you're doing to provide clean and safe water. For those who are listening, if they want to kind of get to know you a little bit better or just find out more about Charity Water, where would you send them?
I would say go to charitywater.org. Check us out, sign up for our newsletter, the spring, which you mentioned, the monthly giving program, get involved in that. We send out good news every single month to people who are donating. And then also we're on all our socials at Charity Water. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, Hannah Bellamy.
Okay. Great. Well, again, Hannah, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the show, give us an update, keep on doing the great work that you're doing, and really appreciate you sharing your insights today.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Hey, friends. Well, I wanted you to know that this podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and wherever you listen to other podcasts. I also want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with others. This will actually help us get this great content out to more nonprofit leaders just like you. You can also join the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast community. Find other resources and interviews of past guests all on my website, nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. Well, thanks again for listening. And until next time, keep making your world better. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. Go to YouTube and look up Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. We'll see you there. This podcast is sponsored by DonorBox. DonorBox, helping you help others with the best donation forms in the business.